Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023. It is 9:35 a.m. This session is set to go until 10 a.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. Vice Chair Ty Menser is excused for this meeting, and Commissioner Gary Edwards is joining us via Zoom. The topic on today's agenda is the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board Annual Update. And we have some SWAB members joining us here today. And I will pass it to the chair and then of the SWAB, and then we can do introductions and move forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Edwards. Let's start by introducing the board members present. So if you would.
Nancy Winters. I'm an at-large member.
Britt Niederhood, District 3 member.
David Hartley, District 1 representative.
And our vice chair, and I serve as chair, and at-large member. My name is Jake Wager. Thank you for the opportunity of providing you this briefing. And to you, Madam Chair, thank you for joining us at our retreat on June 9th. I know that your remarks were very well received by the SWAB members, and very appreciative of you joining us that morning. For me personally, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to serve on the Surface and Stormwater Advisory Board. I only recently adopted Thurston County as my new home. That was as of July 2021. And so then to have the opportunity so quickly afforded me to serve my new home and fellow residents is truly an honor and a privilege. But also speaking of that privilege is being able to serve alongside some fantastic board members, SWAB board members, coming from a variety of backgrounds and skills, but all dedicated to the sole purpose of providing advice to the county commissioners on surface and stormwater related issues. The achievements that we succeeded that we'll be talking about here today could not have been possible without the assistance of professional staff, and I believe the presentation that you just heard from Mr. Schaffner is an indicator of the kind of support that we receive as well, and the board as a whole, the SWAB board as a whole, very much appreciates not just Mr. Schaffner's contribution, but of all the other county staff members that we've had the pleasure and privilege to work alongside with. And finally, one last privilege has been to serve as chair alongside the vice chair, Mr. Hartley, and it's been a great partnership between the two of us, and I hope that we've served the SWAB board well as the county commissioners and the residents of Thurston County. And with that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to the vice chair, Mr. Hartley, so if you would.
Thank you, Jake. Excuse me. First, a little bit more about myself. I came on board with the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board in September of 2021, and am now completing my first year as vice chair, working with our chair, Jake, who you just heard from. I am a 90% retired water resources engineer with a PhD in civil engineering. I have 30 years experience in stormwater and surface water planning and design, focused on flood reduction, water quality, and watershed management, as well as on protection and restoration of aquatic resources. I would like to just describe a few highlights, if I may, of the past year. Our written submittal lists a series of activities, much of which involved reviewing reports, listening to presentations, and significantly taking a field trip to view stormwater facilities. The overall meaning of the list in the written materials that we've submitted is that the SWAB board is fulfilling its responsibility that Larry described in his presentation of review and oversight, providing input to staff on storm and surface water issues. But more than that, it is emblematic of where the Storm and Surface Water Board is in a trajectory. We are a fairly young board in some ways, and the last year has been spent in kind of a learning experience, a learning curve, to get ourselves ready to make recommendations next year. So Jake will talk more about what our focus will be in the coming year after I hit a few high points here. We reviewed an early draft of the Storm and Surface Water Comprehensive Study, and we hope to be actively engaged in reviewing the complete report in the coming year and engage with the staff on shaping the county's overall storm and surface water program. As Larry noted in his presentation, we have a responsibility to provide review and oversight input to the county, but as representatives of our respective districts or our at-large constituencies, we also feel like we have a responsibility to interact with residents within our respective districts, homeowners associations, non-governmental organizations, in order to get input about how the residents of unincorporated Thurston County feel about how the storm and surface water program is going and how it affects them. And we look forward to making more of those connections in the coming year. One of the key recommendations that SWAB made in the past, I believe it was in 2019, prior to Jake's and my tenure on the board, was to establish a series of metrics, a kind of report card for the storm and surface water, the stormwater program. And we're happy to say that the report that we received, which is one of your attachments, indicates that the stormwater program has taken that recommendation seriously and is on track to fulfill those benchmarks that have been set for various activities. What will SWAB look like as we go to five districts? That's a concern that we have. As you heard from Commissioner Edwards, we're missing one SWAB seat is empty, and when we go to 5, if we use the current model, we would need 4 more SWAB representatives, assuming we had continued with 3 at-large members. I think that's a pretty steep hill to climb to fill all those positions. We hope that we can engage constructively with staff on what the scheme is going to be going forward. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Jake to talk more about our plans going forward and the retreat that we held on June 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Hartley. And in fact, most of my comments from this point will reflect the outcome of the retreat held on June 9th. And we've provided you with the outcome of that, and that's attachment D in the report available to you. As Mr. Hartley mentioned, of great interest to the SWAB will be the integration of representatives from the newly formed commissioner districts. We look forward to assisting in that process and offering whatever assistance we can in both the recruitment, but then also helping any new board members coming aboard. This is kind of an alphabet soup of acronyms that we work with, a variety of programs, all interlaced, interfaced with each other. And it is a steep learning curve, so we hope that any new board members come aboard will be giving them some assistance to come up to speed as quickly as possible. We're also interested in exploring a monitoring program to determine the efficacy of surface and stormwater CIP projects. That would include life cycle cost-benefit analysis. We believe additional efforts need to be made in providing early input on CIP projects with those most immediately impacted by that project. And we believe that by providing early input, there'll be a stronger buy-in by that impacted, affected community and a greater understanding of the desired outcomes of that particular capital improvement project. Schwab will remain committed to reviewing and advising on funding proposals for projects and programs with regards to adequacy of resources, both supporting existing programs, but also keeping an eye out on future needs. With a growing population, growing regulations, we hope to, basically, as Larry indicated, with that fund that's available, we may be a little bit ahead of the curve. We are gonna try to help the county stay ahead of that curve and do what we can to provide that assistance. We hope to explore stormwater programs and funding by other jurisdictions, and this would provide us with a contrast that would give us a greater appreciation of how well our programs are performing by examining other jurisdictions and the efficacy and the funding levels of those programs there. Performance metrics, as Mr. Hartley mentioned, are of interest to the Schwab, particularly those that are meaningful and on point, and that remains something of high interest to Schwab. Perhaps the most critical commitment coming out of the retreat is a collective agreement that we want to engage in Thurston County's comprehensive plan process, as well as Thurston County's surface and stormwater study that's presently underway. And some of the efforts that we've committed to are already placed on our calendar. In September, we'll be receiving a briefing on the process for the county's comprehensive plan. So we're eagerly looking forward to that presentation. And at our last, our July 20th meeting, we started an effort of looking at the county's outreach program, and we had a general overview. And in the future meetings, we'll have we'll dial in further on those outreach efforts. One thing that we've talked about is by way of outreach is not just outreach to the public by the county, but outreach by us and engaging with other jurisdictions and other possible partners on a advisory board level to advisory board level, and trying to engage with some of the surrounding jurisdictions and do some note comparisons and try to have a better understanding of how other jurisdictions may be treating this matter. That basically concludes our prepared remarks. Mr. Hartley and I and our fellow board members are available to answer any questions that the board may have of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, a couple of questions. Over from a constituent standpoint, I've had complaints in the past about over on 26th near between Tilly and Slater Kinney. There's been flooding in the past, and now there's a lot of new development going on there, and it looks like that would be something right up Mr. Hartley's line there of the civil engineering end of things. But does that look like they're going to have that flooding under control? It looks to the layman like myself, it looks questionable whether that's all going to work out. Do you know anything about that? I guess that'd be my first question.
Commissioner, I'm not familiar in detail with the area, but I would punt that question to someone like Nate Ensley, um, uh, and not try to touch it myself.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's a little more related to details of the permit.
Okay. Okay, so maybe I would like to know a little more about that. But if just one general question that I'm concerned about, some time back there was quite a bit of coverage about Chinook salmon, the problem with tire deterioration, and I'm just wondering if you folks, Thurston County was kind of actually was the lead in the state on replacing culverts to enhance salmon uh, the ability for the salmon to regain strength, I guess, as a species. And I'm wondering, you mentioned sweeping earlier. Uh, is that something that we're trying to get some of that product off the roadways, maybe before it reaches our waterways?
I'll take a stab at that and then staff can correct me. Yeah, you have mineral deposits from passing traffic, debris falling off of cargo. And so certainly street sweeping does remove material that would otherwise flow into storm drains, et cetera. I think that for myself, the question that I have is what's the cost benefit of that particular program? You know, a street sweeping program works best with a curbed paving structure. And so a lot of your roads really don't have that hard curb to work against. So I think that's a valid question in terms of looking at what's the benefit, what's the cost benefit on street sweeping programs. And I know it's gonna be, and has been in other jurisdictions that I've worked in, has been an NPDES requirement. As to its ultimate value, I think that still remains to be seen. But that's certainly the intent, is to keep that material from the storm drains.
I don't know anything about street sweepers, but do they have a vacuum system that, so they wouldn't have to brush it off the road? They could actually lift it and then vacuum it up?
Process I understand that I'm familiar with does capture within the vehicle, captures the sweeping material, the material that's being swept up. That's then taken to a facility, and there's some sorting there in terms of trying to separate toxics from materials that could go straight into a landfill. So yes, that's the process that they follow.
But also it's vacuuming the catch basins and another operation that supplements and complements the sweeping.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Larry I take it Larry's kind of overseeing this group. He does a lot, but
That he
Do
is
you-
he is the staff member assigned to us, and we enjoy his stewardship.
he's got double duty there, it sounds like. Okay, one of the things Larry mentioned is it looks like we're paying about $84,000 to the state for a couple of different, I don't know if you want to call them permit fees, extortion fees, or whatever it is. And then that we do maintain a fund. Even though we maintain that fund, I would like to see us continually applying for a grant process, if it's available, to augment what we collect from our citizens, for an example, that goes into that fund. So anything that we could do to hang on to our money for maybe other projects, and I think settling ponds on this Chinook salmon thing is a big issue, and I'd like to see something done. But I think we ought to be putting in for grants, just because we've done a good job on setting aside resources. I'm not sure we ought to just let it go at that. We ought to be making application, if the state or feds or whomever would be granting that has it available. Let's make sure we put in for that stuff. So that's it for me. Thanks, Chair.
So two things. Chair may want to introduce the next member of the SWAT that just joined us, Phyllis Farrell.
Good morning. My apologies. I thought it was 10. I misread.
And then Larry, if you wanted to address some of the grants that we do go after, that might be something to.
The county's been very successful in securing grants to help fund capital improvement projects. And there's no plans on stopping those pursuits. Those have been very instrumental in supplementing our existing money and keeping the money in the account for future opportunities.
Okay, thanks, Larry.
Larry's on it, Commissioner Edwards.
Good.
Very
I
good.
know he is.
If you'd like, I could elaborate on the tire dust inquiry.
Well, you know, I am curious about it.
Yeah,
If it's as bad as what they've said, we ought to be at least aware of it.
So there's quite a bit of discussion and research going on the compounds of tire dust. One of the compounds that is getting a lot of attention is referred to 6-PPD-quinone. It's a additive to tires to prevent and slow down oxidation of the rubber. And studies have shown that that's very highly toxic, particularly to coho salmon. And so there's been additional research on what steps could be taken to mitigate that risk in terms of stormwater management, as well as engaging the tire industry on alternatives to that product. In the context of the municipal permit reissuance, as one might imagine, this has been quite the discussion point, one of them. Questions around street sweeping as a potential management practice to abate that is one of the conversations. If it is effective, where and how to apply it effectively. Not all pollutants behave the same. Some are easily collected because they bind the sediment and are easily vacuumed up. Others are in dissolved forms and are more complex to remove. To make things more interesting, pollutants migrate at different rates. So a lot of pollutants go out with that first stormwater flush, but not all. And that's just what's on the surface. There's different rates in terms of infiltration of those pollutants too. So it's very complex science and chemistry involved, and there's a lot of research, probably more questions right now than answers. One of the questions regarding sweeping is if street waste is determined to be a hazardous waste material, the disposal cost of that material will significantly increase in the handling of that. So there's a lot of questions around this, and we're engaged in staying tuned and being part of that conversation.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. I want to thank the SWAB members for really being here today for this presentation and for just the work you put it together. And for tying the comprehensive plan, right, into what you're doing. I thought that was, you're thinking ahead, and I think that's so important to our community and to everything that we're doing. So just thank you so much for being here today. Sorry, couldn't be there in person to see all of you, but just know that we are thankful for the work that you're doing. And as we move forward, we are having discussions about the makeup of all of our advisory boards and commissions and what they're going to look like with the 5 new districts. So thank you for offering your assistance with that. Okay, it is 10 a.m. and if there are no other questions or comments, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.